Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Well, it's been a busy day, and we're very fortunate that Laird Knights, your candidate for District 4 Board of Supervisors, has taken time out of his busy day to introduce himself. And he's kind of like a new presence on the Board of Supervisors race in District 4. And that seat just opened up recently. The candidate, out of nowhere, I think, for health issues, had to step down, so they put somebody in real quick that they were familiar with, and now it's off to an election. So we're excited, ladies and gentlemen, meet Laird Knight. Tell me about yourself, Laird. You've got some interesting backgrounds. How is it that you find yourself in rural Virginia running for Board of Supervisor?
Well, let's start off, Paul. I grew up in the Midwest. I come from a very rural farming area to begin with, and in that area that I grew up at, we raised chickens, had a little vineyard in the back of the house, and we also lived in a forested area. But also too, I would help out my next door neighbor with hay baling during the summers. You know, when I was old enough to do it, I was there helping him out, and then also too, I would help him out with the sheep and his cattle that he had. You know,
so you're familiar with a rural community, and that's an interesting thing, because apparently Orange County has a lot of appeal to you for a lot of these reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, after as you grew up and started moving forward, am I to understand you went to college and VMI?
Yes, I did go to VMI, and how I got to VMI in the first place was that we were looking for colleges when I was in high school, and my dad had a good friend of his that went to VMI, and and then he said, "Son, I believe that this is the place for you."
Oh wow!
And I went, "Yes, Dad." And I went on from there, and it was off the races, and I went through there, and went through breakout, and I was how should I put that? Baptized in Virginia clay, and at VMI I became a Virginian from that point on, and from that point I stayed in Virginia from then on out.
And I will say, I've met a few folks from VMI, and they've always been sharp, on point, and buttoned up, as they say. It's a really well-regarded organization. You don't get in there for being bumpy and rough around the edges, I think is a fair statement. And then, of course, from that, you have an engineering degree?
Yes, I received that at the end of my time at VMI after I graduated.
So why engineering? Why not, let's say, restaurant management?
Well, engineering has always been kind of part and parcel for our family. And my grandfather was involved in the crystal industry for many years, and he had his own business. And then my father he didn't go into that business. He did go into the mechanical engineering side. He worked actually worked in foundries, and then after that he ended up started selling transmissions for Falk, and then from there I ended up working for a turbine company, and then he worked there for about 15 years. Then he turned around and started working for the compressor end of that side of the business, to understand the power industry in general, with this where he was really working at. The compressors basically pressurize your steam to a certain level, and then when it hits the turbine, then the steam is allowed to expand, and when it expands, from there it allows you to turn the turbine, which in turn is joined to the motor, which in turn provides your power.
So this is exciting, and for a lot of you out there, now we have a lot of commonality in this. For years, I had a machinery and equipment business with pneumatics, hydraulics, and people would call on me to solve problems that I would think were simple. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know why they're not solving these problems themselves. It seems logical to me. But what you share with me tells me that these are the natural sciences. These are how you make things happen, how things work. And is it a fair statement to say that part of running a county, there's a lot of nuts and bolts and problem solving. So you now currently you work in terms of some pretty deep and complicated stuff,
Yeah.
patents. You work on research into
on the research side of it. Yes.
validating intellectual thoughts and ideas.
Yes, I do a little bit of everything on this.
Or do they pass muster, so to speak?
Yes. Well, because of my past training at the United States Patent Office, and prior to that, I actually was doing a lot of regular, what you call engineering work, whether or not it was in the site, actual site work. I mean, I did help out.
Boots on the ground, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
Wow,
Well,
okay. So not
literal-
just in an
literal-
office.
Literal boots in the ground,
Right.
yes.
Okay,
yes.
so you pull your sleeves up, you can get into these complex problems, and
Yeah.
you find your way out of them.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
So with that, with my past engineering background, I did help out with wastewater treatment upgrade in Williamsburg, and you could tell what time of day it was by the color of the effluent. Green in the morning, red in the afternoon. Sometimes I switch it up.
Wastewater treatment would suggest, so you're used to working with municipalities and public works, is
So
that?
we do some of that, yes.
Okay, but these are sort of, I guess, these are all design systems. These are infrastructure issues. So you're familiar with working with complex infrastructure.
Yes. Yes.
Now, it's been said to me that Orange County, looking forward, there's some growth coming at us.
Yes.
We're going to have to manage infrastructure, roads, I think has been discussed, water. Now, without getting too much into the weeds on that, sort of coming to today, you made a decision to run, and you met a lot of folks, and you had a quick, sudden rise with all the signatures. In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So
2 or 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So, how is it that someone who's not running suddenly has this energy behind him and the support of the community to run? That's a lot of people. I don't think I could get 160 people to vouch for me in 3 weeks. Maybe it depends, but I mean that's a big thing. How so fast? Are you involved in the community?
It just requires. Yes, I am involved in the community in my local area. I have been actually for a number of years.
All around District 4.
All around District 4, the county,
Yeah.
you name it. I've been involved one way or another. Whether or not it was on an equestrian committee or on a lakes committee or things of that nature. And one of those committees I actually chaired, which was the equestrian committee.
Oh wow!
So,
okay,
so
so leadership's familiar to you.
Yes, it's nothing.
In a community, not just
Yes.
sort of projects, but also interfacing with, sometimes they say if there's two statements, if you want it to die, send it to committee, and then the more people involved in the decision, exponentially the wrong choice being made increases. But you're used to working through those difficult problems.
Well, yes, and for some of these committees, what you deal with is that the goal is to bring together disparate groups of people.
Sure.
Okay.
And that's a tough one.
So with that, you need to make sure that you have the right count, right place, and right time, and that's critical because I know on the equestrian side, we were trying to get. I know the community was trying to get a covered ring in this one equestrian center for over 20 years.
Wow. And I've
Okay.
heard this as a theme. Lots of ideas, but getting them to come to fruition can be hard.
And when I was on the committee, I was made the vice chair, and then we had another chair that was there for a while. But they were able to bring some of the people to the table, but I was able to get in there and bring some of the other people to the table.
So you can bring parties together,
Yes.
expand the conversation, find common ground. And we do know right now in Orange County, there's a lot of pieces moving right
Yes.
now. Now, one of the things that I have heard, and this is a thought that came to mind, is that we hear some of these conversations about the past board, concerns about planning and zoning and so on and so forth, where they're like, well, I can't believe they signed a non-disclosure. And my understanding is that sometimes when you're dealing with business entities
Yes.
that are going to bring revenue to the county, that can expand schools, expand services, expand law enforcement. I mean, we've got to generate a tax base. Is it a fair statement that you can bring something to the table on that?
Well, yes, I am familiar with NDAs as they're commonly known in the industry, or non-disclosure agreements, as you said. Uh, it, it is very common to have those in place, and when you have those in place, they say, oh, they're doing something secret behind the background. No, this is part and parcel of business.
It's the business environment as we know it. So you dealing
especially
with complex,
the bigger, the more money that's involved,
right?
The more likely you will have to sign an NDA, and I have to do that all the time.
So this is familiar territory for you. So it's a fair argument that says with someone who understands this and your ability to research and deal in deep subject matter, when we do need to get involved in these negotiations, from what I'm seeing, I can't think of anybody better in the room than you, who's used to doing this, who's not afraid of dense intellectual landscape, public works, with your work in Williamsburg. I think you mentioned once, one day it's a toilet seat, the next day it's nanoparticles. Who knows?
Well, yes. My work varies widely across the spectrum. I mean, I can deal with some very, very complex subject matter on the fly, and sometimes very simple subject matter. It's just the nature of the work environment that I'm in, and nothing is static. I don't do the same thing day in, day out. I look at, and I'm always learning something new all the time, which is part of the reason why I do like what I do.
Oh, nice.
But the other thing is that it gives you sort of a perspective on things, that you start seeing the connections in the world around you that you might not, that you would take as just a germane type thing every day, but when you start seeing how everything's put together, you go, wow, there's a little miracle here happening every day.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we have that in common. I remember when I was getting involved into control circuits in pneumatics. Some of you will know what that is. The rest of you will be like, he just went blah, blah, blah.
It's just air control people. That's all.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Our HVAC people are out there like, whatever, do you know control, programming, logic circuits? I've not dealt with all that stuff. And it's really exciting. So with a lot of this knowledge, it seems to me like you can, there's a lot of talk about expanding CTE.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk about expanding the schools. Are we going to put a school here, there? We're going to have a big, mega new facility. How are we going to fix it, unfix it? That's going to be a tough thing. There's a lot of people that are going to have to bear on that. And I think it's going to take a lot of deep dive and a lot of research and a lot of ways to figure out where the win for the county is. Yeah. And of course, revenue and all. And we've got to figure out how are we going to move forward. What is it going to look like in 30 years for our grandkids? Are you forward looking like that?
Oh yes, we cannot do anything without our kids, for sure. We got to make sure that they have a future, particularly since in recent years that our kids have been burdened heavily with college debt.
Yeah.
And for years the mantra in the public education system was, oh, you got to go to college to be successful. You got to go to college. And the reality is that CTE training gives you the common sense. And what I mean by that is you have to go in there and you have to use a saw. You have to go in there and you have to be, if you're welding, you have to pay attention to the amount of current that's going through there. You have to make sure you have personal protection equipment, or PPE, as it's commonly called in the welding world. And you have to make sure that you are protected, but also to the people around you are protected as well. So you don't do something stupid that could harm somebody. That's where the trades really come into being.
These are foundational skills that make you a more prepared adult.
Exactly.
Now, also, I've heard, so there's a funny thing I've heard, that one of the most rewarding jobs on the planet is backhoe operator. And the idea is that you take the backhoe, you dig the hole, job satisfaction, hole done. Push the dirt back in the hole, job satisfaction, holes filled.
And hopefully you don't dig underneath yourself so you fall in.
Yeah, or hit a gas line and all that sort of stuff.
There's that too, yes.
But my point being is that I think that these trades start to build a baseline grounding for emotional well-being. I can exert change in my world. I have control over things. These are positive experiences.
Yes,
so they called them Votech back in the day, when I was a kid. And I know we had a nice little building off to the side where it looked like all the troublemakers went, on 5th and 6th period. And as it turns out, most of those guys are doing pretty well right now with a new Corvette, from last year's model. Those guys all went out and, there is a demand, isn't there, for these skills in the county again?
Oh, absolutely. They're
electricians, and you
Yeah.
weld, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do have they get certified in welding.
Oh, nice.
So it,
Well, you
much
ever thought
better.
about going to work for Elon Musk?
Hmm?
You ever thought about going to work for Elon Musk? They were looking for welders for a while there.
Oh yeah, well they're still going to be looking for welders. Oil and
That
gas
never goes
industry,
away.
oil and gas industry, which we actually have in Orange,
Oh, wow.
does need them, and
Wow.
that's just the reality. Anytime you put up any sort of steel building, you need a welder for
Right.
that.
Okay.
So, but we also need, as you touched on a little bit ago, electricians. Take
Sure.
a look at the average age of the electrician to come to your door to fix something. They're usually a little bit long in the tooth, and they're definitely graying.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah.
So
we've got to replenish the labor infrastructure.
not
And
just labor infrastructure, but also to keep those pass on what the older generation knows
before they're gone.
That's right, that knowledge base. Because sooner or later, you're going to have a bunch of people that are basically what I call technological barbarians. We can push the button on the phone,
Yeah.
but they can't get anything else to work.
Well, I trained under an electrician. And I have so many trades, it's ridiculous. I guess I get bored easy. But I did exactly what you said. I trained under an electrician, David Giese, out in Aquia. We had, me and my lovely lass had just had a baby, and the business I worked with finally pulled up, and I was in the machinery and equipment business and moved to West Virginia, to the land of milk and honey. Actually, I think they all found new wives, but I won't get into that. But there I've got a new family, and I've got to pay the bills, and so I saw this job, and I went to work for this electrician. And I had taken electrical and construction in school, so I had enough background knowledge. This guy would take me in, and I didn't formally go into the apprenticeship, but I did go in and work. So whether I had the full certification, I was operating as an apprentice underneath a very skilled electrician, which set me up for my machinery and equipment, doing industrial controls and all of it. Now, I also took electronics in school as well. So all these things helped me to, my daughter's done very well. My wife has done very well. We as a family unit, we couldn't have survived without this aspect of these technical trainings. They kept food on the table, and they kept the lights on. So, and that's a big thing, isn't it? When everybody can earn a little bit of money, and these trades tend to pay well, don't they?
Oh yes, but also too, you're giving back to the community at that
Sure.
point. At a very basic level. I mean, people really appreciate when you actually can keep the lights on. I mean,
Yeah.
and in fact, today,
And pay the mortgage.
well, today we actually lost our power today.
Really?
Yes, we lost our power for a couple hours, and then eventually, somebody got up on the line, was able to remove the whatever animal came over there and shorted out the transformer.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Well,
So-
we're not recommending that you try this at home, folks. Call your local electric cooperative. Just because we're problem solvers, unless you're certified. But anyway, long story short. Well, I'm excited. I hope that we can do some more discussions and conversations. I know that a lot of people are kind of running around with their hair on fire over development and
Yeah.
taxes and all these things. These are long, difficult problems that every county goes through. And I think it's a fair statement that says, with your depth and breadth, your ability to work within these dense, complex issues, and also your ability to work with others and bring a community together, I think we could really look forward to what you have to offer for Supervisor District 4. So that's my endorsement, for what it's worth. Laird, pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to say parting to the folks out there?
well, just remember always to love your neighbors, love yourself, as Jesus taught us, and always make sure that you give out a helping hand to those who need it, because there's always people out there less fortunate than you are. So be safe, take care, and God bless.
Very nice. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We look forward to following up with some more chats later on. If you have any questions, feel free to post comments. And thanks again, Mr. Knight.
Thank you.
Pleasure.